All right, and welcome to Hat-Trick Sports Stack back on our weekly Friday schedule. I'm joined as always by Shane and Brannan. How you guys doing today?
Doing good, doing good. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good. I love the new mic, Shane. That is awesome. Keep bumping
Thank
up
you.
our
Thank you.
setups as always.
It's a repurposed shotgun mic.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. All right, so let's get started with the big news of the week, the Carson Wentz trade. Carson Wentz has been traded for a third round pick in 2021 and a conditional 2022. The second rounder becomes a first round pick if Wentz plays 75% of the snaps or 70%, and the team makes the playoffs. That would be the Colts making the playoffs. The Eagles will also take on 33.8 million in dead cap money, the biggest dead cap hit in NFL history. Of course, they wanted multiple first. They wanted a Stafford-like deal. They end up with a third and a conditional second. Shane, you go first. What is your reaction to Wentz to the Colts?
I think this is kind of a terrible trade on both ends, if I'm being honest. I think the Colts definitely win it. However, I don't like that they have to take on that kind of like his contract,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it is expensive for somebody like him. I mean, it's expensive in general, but um, you know, and we don't know if Wentz is gonna start playing better now that he's with Frank Reich and he's in a new organization that maybe likes him a bit more, or if he is just gonna be kind of how he was last year. So, and that of course also depends on how healthy he stays. So, um, in the last few years, he's managed to last I think 2 years he's managed to stay healthy for the most part, which is a good sign. But um, yeah, I mean, if I think what he really needs most of all is just for just to feel like an organization believes in him. Which if you look at Philly, he was like, he had his potential MVP year, and then he gets hurt. They win the Super Bowl without him, and then they put up the full statue, so he has to like look at that all the time. And then he comes in, and then they draft Jalen Hurts in the second round, so that kind of throws him off. He's like,
It threw him off too much,
right,
which I
right,
was really surprised by, according to reports. But
yeah. So you know, now here we are. But I think that to me just is like the difference between a good quarterback and a great quarterback, where he kind of let the I guess the pressure or the feeling that he wasn't good enough or that the organization didn't believe in him, and
mm-hmm.
as a result he did pretty bad. Whereas you get a guy like Aaron Rodgers who a lot of people still thinking, oh, Favre is better than you, whatever, Favre. And then now they have their first round pick, and then he goes out and has an MVP year.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, him in, granted, Green Bay is obviously a much better team. Matt LaFleur, I think, is better than Doug Peterson. But um, it'll be interesting if, how he does with Frank Reich there, and if they can kind of, you know, rekindle and spark something with how he used to be. So I don't know. We'll see. And for Philly, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
that's just bad.
Yeah.
That's very bad.
Brandon, your thoughts on the deal?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I feel like Philly might as well have just given the Colts the first round pick, because I think
They should have given them the
in
first round
my
pick.
in my opinion,
Yeah.
well, in my opinion, I feel like there's very little way, there's very little chance, in my opinion, that he doesn't fulfill the quota
Yeah.
for the first round pick. It feels
And the Colts should make the playoffs even with Carson Wentz, considering
Well,
their roster.
I don't actually know that, because you see a team teams can be good, but you need a half decent quarterback to lead a team to the Super Bowl or the playoffs. And Phillip Rivers, he had a pretty good career, but that's a pretty big drop between Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz. And I'm a little surprised that Indy would make him their guy. It has to be Frank Wright.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Here's my thing. The Colts, what risk do they take here? There's no risk. It's actually insane. The risk is built into the trade, as Mike Florio has talked about.
Except for the contract.
I don't care. Who cares about the contract? I'm paying you a third for a guy that I could start, and then if he sucks, who cares? I can trade him again, or he can be on my bench.
Yeah, but he's not going to be tradable.
Yeah, if he's not tradable, fine. I'll have him on my bench. Yeah, the contract sucks, but I only paid a third. I paid nothing. I paid a conditional second. Who cares? I paid nothing. So why does it matter?
But you're picking up all his money.
You're picking up his money, but again, you're not. The risk is built in. Well, yeah, the dead money's with the Eagles. I don't care about the dead money from the Colts. It's there's nothing. That's what makes me so upset with the Eagles here. Is okay, maybe you could have picked up his $10 million roster bonus on March 17th, and maybe could have gotten a better deal. I don't know if they wanted to do that. But it's also so stupid that they were looking for a Stafford-like deal. That was very clear, and look what they ended up with. They just caved. They literally had another month to try to make a deal work that could have been better suited for them with the Colts, because probably the Colts were the only option. Because the Bears weren't going to make a deal with them at all.
I mean, to be honest, I would say the Eagles screwed up in the first place, giving a guy like Carson Wentz such a giant contract.
Same with Jared Goff getting the massive deal when they didn't have to pay him.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It's said all the time. Don't pay players too early.
Don't pay a guy if you're not 100% sure about him.
Right,
you're just gonna put yourself in this situation over and over and over again, and we've seen it in full display this offseason already.
If they have a year left on their contract before you have to pay them,
you got that fifth-year option.
You got that fifth-year option. Don't go giving them a crap load of money, only because a lot of the times when players end up getting a crap load of money, they end up sucking.
Yeah, and you end up having to trade them and getting stupid cap hits. Crazy.
Yep.
It's the only quarterbacks you should be really giving money to are quarterbacks that have shown consistency through multiple back-to-back years in their career.
And you're comfortable with them. I don't think the Rams comfortable with Goff. I don't think the Eagles were ever comfortable with Wentz considering his injuries. Here's the 5 largest dead cap hits in NFL history according to CBS Sports. Wentz, Goff, Brandon Cooks with the Rams, Antonio Brown with the Steelers. That one they were fine taking. And then now Stafford. So there's a bit of a trend here, at least with the quarterbacks on this list, other than, I guess, Stafford. So probably just Wentz and Goff, but even for Cooks and Brown, these were guys that kind of had to take the cap hits.
Well, I'm kind of surprised that the Eagles weren't able to work out getting at least a player back from
who would you get back? That's the question. Who would they be willing to give up?
Well, let's see. If they're giving if I was the Eagles, I would not be caring so much about
picks.
I'd be caring more about, okay, we need to start getting guys that we can build around. And I would say probably I would have maneuvered the whole we're picking up his cap, we're taking the hit, and I would say we'll use that as a way to argue for someone decent. Not obviously not one of their stars or anything, but
you want a running back? I mean, if I'm the Colts, that's all I'm giving you.
Offensive.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Maybe, I mean, they're pretty deep.
I'm just giving. Just take them. I'm just giving you
Marlon
Mack. Just take them.
Well,
I don't care about giving you a player.
Well, here's the thing. If I'm the Chief, I mean, if I'm the Eagles, I'm going for someone like, I don't know, maybe T.Y. Hilton, who has shown, Robert,
you can't trade him. You can't trade him. He's a free agent.
Robert, this is exactly. You do a sign and trade deal.
I guess. Yeah.
This is a guy who was made it very clear that he probably doesn't want to come back to the.
It looks like he's not coming back. Yeah, that's true.
And he's also someone that fits the MO for the Eagles, just like fast, old. Just like guys who are at the end of their career and they're like, sure, we'll take them. Maybe, I would say maybe Naheem Hines, because Jonathan Taylor is going to take his job next year. But
yeah, and they still got Marlon Mack and Jordan Wilkins. The thing is, if I'm the Colts, I'm saying I don't know. I'm saying no, because you're going to end up giving me a 3rd-round pick anyway.
Yeah,
I don't need to give you a play. Like all the cards were with the Colts. So if you give me this offer, I'm just like, nah.
And the thing is, the Colts are like, why would the Colts do that when they're at a point where they're like on the precipice of Super Bowl contention?
Yeah, they're at a point where they're ready to be competitive. What's the point?
They only need like 1 or 2 pieces, in my opinion.
This shows how dumb the Eagles were here. Well, thinking that they were going to get a Stafford-like deal, and then they end up getting this because guess who holds the cards? The opposing team.
The problem with the Eagles is they're so screwed because they are just they're so far down the hole right now that their mind is still, we can be competitive. Nah, Eagles, you gotta say scrap it and rebuild. Like, you are so far down the hole right now that you are nowhere close to.
They're going to start taking massive cap hits because we'll get to it later in the show. Zach Ertz is going to leave potentially as well. So they're going to be in some cap trouble too, some dead cap trouble.
They're going to have to drop a lot of players.
Yeah. So we will get to that in a bit. But, yeah, I guess this just proves it's like they just didn't have any cards. They were like, they were the one taking the brunt of the hit, and at some point, they just had to do it, but I still don't understand. They could have just waited another month, and they're
I guess they're just praying that the guy they have right now is gonna turn out at quarterback. Like,
see, that's also the thing with Jalen Hurts too. The Eagles, well, again, I mean, we've had countless conversations about Jalen Hurts, and yeah, as we talked about, his numbers weren't that great, but I still feel like he still needs a fair shot. I still think he needs a full year. And even the Eagles aren't convinced. They want to bring in somebody else. And I'm like, oh, chill out.
Well, I respect the guy. To be honest, I respect the guy. But, like, I think he is – even if he's given a fair shot, he's screwed either way because there's going to be so much pressure on him to perform that. And he's in Philadelphia. This is the city that threw snowballs at a friggin' Santa Claus. Like – and it wasn't just snowballs. Yeah, and they threw batteries and like it's crazy.
Philly.
It's Philly. They're crazy.
The fans care, man.
My thing is, honestly, it might be better for Hurts is if they bring in a guy who's like middle of the road quarterback who they can bring in, kind of have a Miami situation going on where they could put the guy who wins. He could get it done. You put him in at quarterback and let Hurts watch from the sideline.
I'm trying to think what are the options here. Let me see.
Oh, I know one guy that he's a mystical man.
Oh,
some
he
say
should retire.
Some say he's
Harvard
magic.
He's Harvard educated.
He's Harvard educated. Some say he lives in the shadows. Some say he's just that good.
Some say he's the 7th best quarterback in the NFL.
Some do say that.
They
call him Fitzmagic.
He needs to retire.
No, he doesn't. Dude, he won't have dude, there's no reason for him to retire at this point. The dude is still making good money traveling around the league. He's like the perfect backup, in my opinion.
What is his contract? Is he getting paid right now by the Dolphins?
I think his contract's up.
I think it's up.
Dolphins.
And I know that he was talking about retirement, so that's kind of why I mention it. That I think.
Well, he's also said
Probably
that
should.
as long as teams want him, he'll keep
Yeah,
playing.
I'm sure teams want him. That's the thing. I don't know.
And
It's
yet
an
you hate
option.
on him, Robert.
I just think he should retire. I mean, he's 38 years old. He's done a lot in the league. I think.
So Tom Brady's still playing.
And at some point, the magic is gonna run out. So
Okay, until then, you might as well just keep the
I
epic
guess.
story running. That, in my
I
mind,
guess.
in a dream world, they'd be like, you know what? He never won a Super Bowl, but he was so good as a backup that we're gonna put him in the Hall of Fame. Damn
That's
it!
how much you love him. You want to put him in the hall.
Dude, he's amazing.
You want to
He's
put him in the
freaking
hall.
Fitzmagic.
You want to put him in the hall just because he has 5 good games every year.
Bruh, he did not have 5 good games this year. If I'm convinced if they left him in the season, that Dolphins team makes it to the playoffs.
Probably, honestly.
They made a big mistake putting Tua in.
Yeah, well, they need to play him. Let's see. Let's move on to J.J. Watt. Brannan, what are your thoughts on his release? How the Texans have handled that, and kind of what do you think are his options here, especially with the cap being condensed to 180 million?
So first of all, this is not the same J.J. Watt that was a dominant beast early on in his career. He's had 3 seasons ended early by injuries back to back to back. He is injury prone. He is probably going to retire soon. I think he's going to go to a team that he believes doesn't need a lot to make the Super Bowl again. But the problem with that is a lot of these teams are hurting cap-wise.
Right.
Because, he's J.J. Watt. He's a player that's going to ask for a lot of money.
He's probably going to ask for about 15 million, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So
I could see him going to the Jags. I could see him going to
Jags,
the Browns.
really.
I could see him going to the Browns. Because the Jags and the Browns are one of the only couple teams that have the cap to facilitate a $15 million contract.
Yeah, I think the Browns are the most likely destination right now. We'll see how it changes when teams start kind of maneuvering around the cap, but that seems very likely to me. And he's very intrigued by the option to play alongside Myles Garrett. So,
and then to be honest, I kind of want him to go to the Browns because I think if he goes to the Browns, that defense would be one of the only defenses that we'll see in a long time to actually compare to the Legion of Boom.
That secondary was bad last year.
Well, that's true. The Legion sometimes I forget about how complete the Legion of Boom was. The
D-line was better.
Every player on that team, every player on that defense was amazing in the Legion of Boom.
Pretty much Pro Bowl guys, yeah.
Right, yeah. Which is kind of insane to think about how that was built. I think that would be a fun retrospective to have at some point.
We'll do a rewatchables on one of the things, probably the Packers game at some point down the line. Shane.
Yeah, I actually just one more thing.
Go ahead.
I actually think, to be honest, the most likely place he'll end up is Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh doesn't have money, man.
Well,
they don't have money unless they restructure Big Ben, and they ain't going to restructure $41 million.
I don't think Big Ben's coming back.
I hope not. Yeah, that contract is crazy.
They've literally said the Steelers have literally said that if Big Ben wants to come back, he's gonna have to drop his salary a lot.
No, he's gonna have to. The cap, the cap hit for him right now is $41.2 million.
Yeah,
they cut him. They saved $19 million, but the Steelers are $30 million over the cap right now.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is a conversation to be had. The Steelers, I don't know why they would bring Big Ben back.
I don't think they should at this point. I think
He's
the cap
old.
hits too much.
He's washed up. He's not good. He's like a worse version of Peyton Manning at that point in his career. Like,
I don't even know how comparable that even is.
well, I mean, Peyton Manning and him were both throwing ducks. I mean, just think about that game against the Bengals last year or this year. Like, he was shot putting the ball.
My whole thing is I think the money is stupid. I don't think there's a way that they can negotiate anything because the money is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think they have to cut him and move on. I don't think they have another choice, even if they want to keep him. Shane, your thoughts on if the Steelers should keep Big Ben?
I don't know why they would want to, because he's just not good anyways. I mean,
Bless you.
my allergies are kicking me. What was I saying? Oh yeah. Like, the thing about Big Ben is, he, like, this year he started out the season really well, right? But then as it went on, he slowly, you could just tell that he was getting tired and he just couldn't keep up, basically, because he did not look good in the second half of the year, like, at all. So I do think they should move on from him. I don't know who they pick up to replace
Draft
him.
somebody in the first round late.
Yeah, but I mean, who are you gonna get by that point?
Trey
Mac
Lance?
Jones? Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not going to draft Mac Jones in the first round, at least right now. I have to watch more tape of him.
No, yeah. I don't know. It's just I think, honestly, I think they should have moved on from him like 2 or 3 years ago.
Now is the perfect time because you just can save a bunch of money.
Because he was, I mean, he had started regressing way back then, if he wasn't injured. So I was like, okay, what are we doing here? Like, let's go along. They're like, no, we love Ben. And then, here we are now. So
It's time for them to move on, I think, is kind of our consensus.
yeah, but will they? Probably not, because it's the Steelers, and they're like, oh, Ben, yeah.
Can they still be competitive with Big Ben in that defense? Yes or no?
No.
Brannan, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't. I think this was the Steelers' only chance for the next couple of years to be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're gonna see them kind of fall off. I think the difference between the Seahawks and the Steelers is the Seahawks, they continuously restructure. Like, they're always moving. They're always like.
It says in their cap number here, as we're looking at over the cap here, looking at some of the cap numbers for this year.
Yeah.
Looking through this, so here's the Eagles. Here's their dead cap money. It just got updated this morning. $34 million. Seahawks are above it about $4 million. Texans are at $5 million. I don't know what's the dead cap. How much dead cap is it for trading Deshaun Watson? I'm sure there's a bit.
I don't know.
So Jets, Patriots have a lot of money. So that's interesting. Colts still have a lot of money. But teams here at the bottom, like the Chiefs, $23 million. How are they going to cut that down? From being a Super Bowl team, they're going to have to cut a bunch of that down. Of course, the Rams, the Eagles, the Saints at 69. Like these teams are going to have to cut down. And then what's going to happen is a bunch of guys are going to just take 1-year deals because the cap is too small, especially when these guys actually want to be on competitive teams. A lot of these veterans at this point, it's going to be tough to even sniff a long-term deal with this kind of cap issues for some of these teams at the bottom who are being competitive.
Well, the first thing the Chiefs should do is sign their quarterback to a $500 million deal. Oh, wait, that worked out well.
Well, under this cap structure, I think down the road it will get better. But under this cap structure, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, but we've talked about this for a while with the Chiefs. Like,
Yeah.
they're not. I don't like after this Super Bowl. I legitimately don't think they're gonna make it to the Super Bowl for a while.
The
I think
AFC's gonna get
I
better.
think the Chiefs are gonna be very much like the Seahawks, where the
Yeah.
NFC was pretty bad when we won the Super Bowl, and we kind of cakewalked our way to the Super Bowl. And same with the Chiefs. Like,
They have a couple
it's
more
like-
years, but I wonder how this cap money is gonna work, especially this year, because they're gonna start losing pieces.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it is kind of a similar story too. You know, it's like the new quarterback's first year they make it to the playoffs, lose, and then next year they win the Super Bowl, and the year after that they lose the Super Bowl to Tom Brady.
yeah, it's
literally
exactly
like-
the same story.
Yeah, and then now I think they're gonna just kind of get to like the divisional round, maybe the conference championship, lose. You know.
Well, the difference is the Chiefs, since they're under the cap, since they're so swamped in the cap,
Yeah.
they're not going to be able to have the money to pay guys.
They're gonna have
No.
to restructure a lot. Like I know
They're gonna
Sammy
have to-
Watkins is
I
gonna be a
think-
restructure
I
guy.
think they're going to have to drop a lot of guys. I think a lot of these dudes, this is the NFL. NFL players understand how it works. They understand that you got only so much time to make so much money before you can't do it anymore. And Sammy Watkins has shown he has no problem jumping ship.
Restructuring.
He has no problem jumping ship and go to another team.
He restructured last year too, so
Well,
I wouldn't be
Sammy
surprised.
Watkins was with Buffalo, and he jumped ship and went to the Chiefs.
I think had one more stop in the middle there, maybe. But either way, he restructured last year too. I think it was 1 year, 15 this year. But
It's
he had to
also
restructure
crazy.
from 25, I think.
It's also funny to see the Packers so swamped, and freaking Aaron Rodgers is over here being like, "Get me pieces," and it's like, my dude, you're so swamped and like, what do you mean?
This goes back to a more larger point. If you're the Browns, if you're the Chargers, even if you're the Dolphins, Bengals, let's see who else on this list. Ravens, your quarterback's on a rookie deal. Let's go.
Right. Exactly.
Let's
it's
go.
Like, it's like this is
Let's
the
go.
teams that this is their chance to win a Super Bowl, in my opinion, are like the Colts, the Dolphins, the Chargers, the Browns.
Colts, probably even with Carson Wentz, probably.
I mean,
with their
the
roster, yeah.
Colts in the next, I would say the Colts, if they can get a quarterback better than Wentz and a
Maybe
couple
it
of
is
pieces,
Wentz.
they
Who
could
knows?
make it. They could get it. But like all the usual good teams are floundering in cap.
Yep.
Hell, they don't have the chance to just pick and they can't go shopping until maybe 2 years from now when the cap goes up again.
Yeah.
Um,
Who knows how teams are going to restructure? Because even with teams like the Raiders, we'll get to the Raiders being interested in Juju later. Like, it's not like they're not going to make moves. It's just going to be interesting how they navigate the cap, how they're able to navigate some of the structural things.
But if you
make
remember,
moves.
Robert, what usually happens with cap issues is when you have because this comes around every like 6, 7, 8 years where you'll have like a super low year with cap numbers.
Yeah.
The Seahawks, they took advantage of this back in like 2000 and I think it was 2011 when
Yeah.
everything was super low.
Because
The
of the
Seahawks,
lockout, because of the lockout.
they jumped their way to the top of the list by picking up a bunch of players because they had the money, and other
on
teams
short-term deals, right? So-
other teams who were originally in the lead, who were consistently making it, they stopped making it, and it was the Seahawks who were building up, ready to win their Super Bowl, and that's why I say teams like, I mean, even the Buccaneers are going to be still in competition because they have a good team. Plus, they're not in big of cap issues.
They're gonna be in a bit with how many guys are in free agency, but at least
Yeah.
they're gonna pay
Yeah.
some of them.
But that's
And
the
there's
other
the
thing.
Falcons.
Yeah, the Falcons, they're
Falcons.
forever sucking.
20 million, dang, bro.
But it'll be I'm going to be very interested in seeing whether the Buccaneers can pull it off again, because I don't think they can.
Chris Godwin looks like he's coming back. As for the rest of them, I have no intel on what's going to happen there. Shaq Barrett, I have no clue. It's going to be interesting to see what they do.
One team that I'm really going to be interested to see just exactly how good they are this next year is the Chargers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like the team that
whether Herbert can really be good. It's not just a freshman year luck.
And we talk about with Brandon Staley too, like that he was pretty good under McVay as a defensive coordinator. I think it's good they brought in a defensive coach, and maybe their defense could be a lot. I think their defense actually ranked pretty well at the end of the year. Now they bring back Derwin James. Hopefully he's healthy throughout the year. Defense could be better too. This is a chance for them to be competitive really quickly and with all that cap space as well.
Well, I mean, the thing is too, like there were so many games that they lost by a score,
Yeah.
They could have just been on the winning side of those. They would have, I mean, they could have gone from 7-9 to 10-6 easily, you know? So there's that as well.
Panthers, we'll see what they do with Teddy Bridgewater. Of course, we constantly talk about the Cowboys and what they're doing with Dak there.
Well, apparently the Panthers are going after Deshaun Watson.
So are the Broncos as well. So
and the
here
49ers, maybe.
And Niners.
Well,
I don't know.
I don't know if
the
the Niners are
Niners
interested, but Deshaun is interested in them.
So. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the Niners. I don't know if they want to do anything.
The Niners, I don't think the Niners are going to have the cap, because again, they have to deal with a lot of players who are.
Yeah, but they also mainly got to deal with Jimmy Garoppolo, which is their cap hit issue here.
Well, their defense as well.
Yeah, true. There are pieces in their defense.
But I don't think Deshaun is going to come to the NFC West. I think he'll end up, as much as, actually, to be honest, I don't think he's going to leave Houston at all. I don't think he's going to get his trade. I think they're just going to be like, fine, sit on the bench, see how you like it. And he'll be like, okay, fine. I got my millions.
Yeah, here's the deal. Houston, no, we got a problem, Houston. Trade him. This is dumb. It's literally dumb. It's literally dumb that they are just like, he's our guy, whatever, we'll figure it out. Training camp, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be forced to trade him for dimes on the dollar or whatever.
He's not going to show up.
He's not going to show up, and he doesn't care. Look, the basic reality here is that Houston doesn't know what they're doing. That entire organization doesn't know what they're doing. I mean, we know this, but again, they need to trade him now. They need to trade him by the draft. And if they don't do it on draft night or the second night of draft night, they're screwed, because no team is going to give them an accurate package during training camp, when every team in some respects has some cap issues.
I would say the Steelers should go for him, but I think they're
out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think the Jaguars would go for him?
Nah, they're going unless Houston is hell bent on getting the number one pick, which in that case it could be interesting. But the Jags are pretty clear with Trevor Lawrence, especially after watching his pro day and seeing Urban Meyer. And we'll get a bit to the problems of the Jags front office that have already showed throughout this offseason. But Urban was there. They're very clearly focused on Trevor Lawrence. I don't think they're going to move off him right now.
Patriots
are an option.
Washington? That'd be good.
Washington would be fun.
The Patriots they're not going to go for a guy like Deshaun Watson, because they're not about super athletic quarterbacks.
Nah, that could change. This is the one year where I think they need to transition to that type of quarterback if they're going to be competitive.
I feel like if Washington got him, honestly, I think they'd probably become like a 10-win team.
Yeah, they'd be a nice playoff contender, especially with that defensive line.
Well, the defense in general.
That's true.
Didn't they have the best pass defense last year?
Yes, I think they had a top 5 pass defense and then the number 1 pass rush, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
Anyways.
All right, so we talked about Deshaun Watson. Want to talk about the Seahawks and what they're going to do this offseason. It's actually quite an interesting bunch of guys. So first off, Chris Carson is appearing to be on his way out, which I think is good.
Yeah.
Shane, your thoughts on sort of Chris Carson going away? And here's kind of an interesting tidbit. The Athletic reported that they could be interested in Mike Davis, the Panthers running back. So there are options out there. I was thinking Leonard Fournette can also be an option to watch for them.
Yeah, I think as good as Carson is, especially in Seattle's scheme, I think it's just, they don't have a ton of extra money. He's probably going to be expensive, and he's hurt a lot. He just is. So, in Seattle, you definitely need, considering that they like to run a lot, you definitely need a very consistent, reliable guy. And I just don't think it's him, unfortunately. So, yeah, I mean, I really like the thought of Mike Davis or Leonard Fournette. I think that they're both, certainly options. Mike Davis would, I could very easily see that happening. Um, Same with some people are saying, what's his name from Green Bay, Jamal Williams.
Jamal
Yeah.
Williams, dang, that would be an interesting one too.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Mike Davis was, he was basically the starter in Carolina this year.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately McCaffrey was out most of the season, but he had like 1,100 yards, which that's very good. So, I could see that happening. I wouldn't. I honestly feel like that would probably be better at this point. So, yeah,
Going
and
to
then
Go
DJ
ahead, sir.
Dallas, their rookie guy from last year. He, I think he can be like a nice, RB2 guy, just kind of put in the rotation, like, so,
Wait, they still have Rashad Penny, don't they? He's on his 5th-year option this year.
That's true, they do.
Dang.
He's also decent.
Yeah, he can work with them.
They should bring back Marshawn.
With the Packers as well, am I crazy for thinking that they should not bring back Aaron Jones and not bring back Jamal Williams and one with A.J. Dillon?
Well, if they're not going to bring back Aaron Jones, then the Seahawks should get Aaron Jones.
Right, but like I'm just saying, Brandon, do you think it makes sense for them to bring back Aaron Jones? Because
yeah, I do, because the guy that they drafted, A.J. Dillon, is only really useful as like a third down goal line back.
when he got full starter like time though, he was pretty solid. I mean, especially with their cap situation, I just don't think it makes sense.
Because he is cheaper. I don't know. I mean, Aaron Jones is it's when you have a guy like Aaron Jones who's a top 5 running back
when healthy.
When healthy, yeah, it's kind of hard to just let that go.
Well, I mean, you could say the same thing about Chris Carson. Like he's a top tier running back when healthy.
Top 10 probably.
Yeah. And that's why they want to move off him. It's not really because of that's why the Seahawks are going to move off him. It's not really because of his talent. It's really because of the injuries.
Yeah.
They can't deal with that.
And
I feel like with Aaron Jones, it's kind of the same situation.
Again, like I can vouch for his talent because like I was there his mini when he was a rookie during training camp, like as press, and I was able to see him up close and running. And it's like I've never seen a running back who was drafted in the 7th round look like first round talent.
That's what the running back position is in the draft. You don't need to draft a first round guy.
It was insane.
Yeah, you don't need to. It's kind of wild.
Well, that's what the Seahawks do is they find these random gems in the 5th round or 7th round or whatever. But yeah.
Brandon, I'm really interested in your take not only about what they're going to do with the running back position, but also at the tight end position, as Zach Ertz has come up as a name the Seahawks might go after or have had talks with. What are your thoughts of both where they're at with the running back position, and would Zach Ertz be a good fit for this offense?
I don't want them to go after Zach Ertz because we have two young, very talented tight ends that if we gave playing time, I think they could build them up to be very good tight ends. The only problem about them is they're kind of small for tight ends. So
I think the thing is, like, I think they're both. I mean, like, they're not amazing, but I think they're good enough. You know what I mean? Like, because the Seahawks use tight ends kind of strange, anyways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that I think there are other areas that they should prioritize, like offensive line, defensive line, corner.
Yeah, I don't think Russell would be too happy if they went out and got a tight end.
Yeah.
Over offensive.
Yeah, it is interesting that, like, with Zach Ertz, I think you guys are right. That's kind of what makes the tight end position so weird for Seattle. Like, Greg Olsen didn't work, and the main reason he didn't work was because it just doesn't fit what they want to do. I feel like
Olsen was also hurt.
Yeah, it's also true. That's also true. I mean, they've also had conversations the Eagles have with the Colts. I mean, they made a trade with them yesterday. Who knows where that would land? But Zach Ertz has a super interesting market. And I wonder how deep it is. I don't know if it's very deep right now. And
yeah, because that's the thing. Like, the Seahawks, they get these star tight ends like Jimmy Graham or Greg Olsen or whatever, and they just don't do very well. I mean, meanwhile, you get some guy like Luke Wilson who does great, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, this guy's awesome,"
He
and
is awesome.
He's basically just a blocking tight end, but they get him to catch balls.
Well, you know what?
He looks great.
He's a blocking tight end, but they use him really well. But they used him really well because they used him just as a guy in like goal line situations / short yardage situations.
And
just
same with
dunking it.
Same with Hollister last year when he had like the whole year basically. Yeah, got balled out, So I don't know. Anyways,
let's move on from the tight end position to the receiver position before we close out our offseason docket for today, other than, I believe, Jacksonville, which we'll get to. Juju has another really wild market coming up in free agency. It doesn't look like we'll come back to the Steelers, considering the development the Steelers have at the wide receiver position probably isn't necessary. I think the team that we expected to be interested in him was the Raiders, and the Raiders are interested in him. Brandon, I think this goes back to what you've kind of said about teams that want flashy guys. It really shows with how the Raiders do business in the offseason, and them getting Juju kind of does the same thing for them, although he's probably going to, or he's 100% going to be their best receiver and most productive receiver if that does happen. But what are your thoughts on the Raiders still kind of going through a lot more of these players that are considered more flashy than anything else?
This is such a Gruden pick. This would be such a Gruden pick. Like, the guy who, like, makes a lot of noise in the media, but, like, isn't that negative, but, like, he does the whole thing with TikTok, and
which is super funny, by the way. I'm not even gonna lie.
Also pretty stupid in my opinion. And, like, he's a good player, but he's not, like, the best player around. And that's kind of the problem with the Raiders. Like, they've taken, when they pick up players, they pick up players that are good, but they're not the best. Like, they pick up players who are like number 2s on other teams and make them their number 1s. Like, Juju was not a number 1 receiver on the Steelers.
Except that 1 year with like AB being gone or whatever. It was
Yeah.
like literally one season. It
He
was
was
like
at,
his
like-
rookie year.
This year, Juju was a number 2.
Maybe
And it was a
even a
number
number 3 at
Yeah.
times too. It
He was
wasn't perfect.
he was a 2 or 3 last year, so on and so forth. I don't even pay attention to this Raiders team because people say, "Oh, they're going to be good," but like, okay, is it like they were what, like 9-7 this year,
Something like that, yeah.
something like that? Like, whoop-de-doo, cool. You're 9-7. Congrats, you beat teams you should, and then you lose teams that you should beat.
Pretty
Like,
much. Honestly, pretty much. Yeah.
Except for the Chiefs early in the year.
Yeah, but that was kind of a fluke.
Divisional game.
Yeah.
Shane, of course, it does appear that they are going to keep Derek Carr unless things change dramatically. Seems like Derek Carr is going to stay. How would Derek Carr and Juju work together if that ends up happening?
I mean, I imagine they would be fine. The thing I don't understand is just that Vegas already has 3 good receivers. They don't
Nelson
need.
Aguilar's gone, probably. Keep that in
Well,
mind.
that's true. Okay, well, 2. They have 2 good receivers. I just don't see why they would go after somebody like him and spend all this money, when in reality they should be focusing on the other side of the ball. Defense. Hello, this is not that hard to figure out, Vegas.
Yeah.
Anyways,
It is true, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, Juju, he fits the identity of the team in the city. It's Vegas, it's big lights, rah rah. But I don't think that's just not what they need, in my opinion. It just kind of goes back to like the last year's draft. You had the 3 receivers. There was CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, and
Henry Ruggs.
Henry Ruggs. They were
Who
like
they drafted
big
Ruggs
3.
first.
Yeah, they were like the big 3 guys. And in my opinion, they all went to 3 teams that really didn't need receivers. So that was kind of weird. But
CeeDee Lamb worked.
no, he does. But I mean,
Jerry Jeudy made sense for Denver. But Henry Ruggs was just weird that he went above all of them because he's pure speed, and he didn't even have that good of a year this year. He'll have a better year next year, I'm certain. But
because there just were so many other positions that they should have prioritized, and there were so many other teams that could have used them first. But I don't know, it was just weird.
I think with
kind of a side rant, but I've never talked about that.
No, I think with Vegas, the reason why they got Henry Ruggs was they're always looking for an Antonio Brown type receiver, right? Like Antonio Brown is prime type receiver. That's why they brought in Antonio Brown, which failed miserably because of course it did. But that's kind of what they look for, and Henry Ruggs kind of fit that bill. Again, didn't have a great year this year. Nelson Aguilar kind of was the main man there last year. We'll see if he comes back. Doesn't appear so. But I think he'll have a better year. I wonder if Juju will help him or hurt him in the receiving department and with his development. I think it's more hurt him than help him, as you see with Nelson Aguilar. But
because he's too concerned with making TikToks.
Again, to be fair, I do enjoy them. They are funny.
They're cringy.
They are pretty funny in my opinion.
I enjoy it. I enjoy when he gets clapped by the
that stuff
other
is
team
crazy.
when
Can we talk
does
about how
that.
the Steelers always have games, or I think mostly in their division, where it's like they always have games where it's just hard hitting because that's kind of what that division is. Like that division
AFC
is
North,
crazy.
brutality legal. Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Brutality.
That division is insane.
The AFC North rated M for mature.
Brutality.
I mean, it's basically what it is because every time it's funny how every year they put the Bengals and the Steelers on Monday Night Football, and every year that is the most WWE-esque game.
Oh, it's
year.
the best game every year. It's like
It's
just people
worst.
getting slammed, people getting thrown against like
And the officials do
benches.
nothing because they're like, oh, this is the AFC North. Let's let them do it.
Well, the
Old school smash
officials,
them out.
the officials are like, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like gonna go do something, and then Goodell goes in their earpiece. No, this is ratings. This is ratings, and they're like, "Oh yeah, okay, sorry."
Let's move on to Trevor Lawrence. How much did you guys catch of his pro day last week?
A little bit.
A little bit.
I saw his like 5 best throws or whatever compilation, and I was like, all right, because that was the one. I think that was the one area that I was like a little bit concerned with him on is his arm strength. But after seeing that, I'm like, yeah, okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
looks good there.
The deep balls were also perfect for social media. Props Jordan Palmer. Of course, he's kind of the main trainer for all these quarterbacks. So here are my thoughts. Well, first off, Urban Meyer was talking to Dabo the whole time. It is very clear that Jacksonville has their sights on him and nobody else. Of course, we had some conversations about what they would do with that quarterback with one Ohio State quarterback, of course, but Justin Fields, excuse me. But they're clearly interested in Trevor Lawrence, as I would assume that makes a lot of sense. But the pro day, I mean, I think the weirdest throw in a pro day every year for me to kind of figure out with a quarterback is the sort of sideline throws, towards the boundary. I've always had a tough time with judging quarterbacks on that front. I had a tough time judging him there. But otherwise, it's what you kind of expect for a guy who, according to Will Scott and everybody's a generational talent. It's kind of what you expect from a pro day. And I don't even think you can make too much of it because we already know he's going number 1.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I know that everybody says he's like a generational talent or whatever. I don't see that, to be honest.
Do you see Andrew Luck in him? Do you see a better version of Andrew Luck or no? Right now, when Andrew Luck came out of Stanford, is he a better version of that to you? Because that's the comparison.
No.
Why not?
Well, to be honest, I wasn't ever that high on Andrew Luck either. I mean, I knew he was good, obviously, but I didn't think like, oh, this guy's the best quarterback we've ever seen, I don't know. I mean, I just like he has the thing about Lawrence to me is that he has the athleticism, the arm, the knowledge, all that. But none of them to me feel like they are really top notch. It's just kind of like he's just good at all of them, but not really great at any of them. If that makes sense.
I wonder if that can be developed, though, in some cases. I'm not sure if Jacksonville's the best spot for that, to be honest. But
I mean, that's the thing. It definitely could be, and I think there is potential for that because normally you look at a guy. I mean, with a quarterback, you want intelligence, or I guess decision making. Let's put it that way. Arm accuracy, arm strength, and athleticism. Ideally, those are like the 4 things that you look for. Most guys, like most good players, have 3 of those, right? The great ones have all 4, which I think he does have all 4, but they're just not like none of them are really amazing, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I think that I think a guy like Justin Fields honestly has more potential in the NFL just based off of how the league is now.
I feel like initially he does.
Yeah.
Just because of what he kind of has more of that like spread air raid style of play that's kind of been spreading around the league.
Yeah. But if you can take Lawrence and develop him, I could see him being like a top 5-6 quarterback maybe.
Mm-hmm.
If you can, because he does. I mean, like I said, he does have like the base of the skills, I believe. But it's just a matter of, developing them as a pro, which, we'll see. I mean, look at Josh Allen. He really only had 2 of those 4 things, and now he has all 4.
Yeah.
So, and he's great. So, yeah.
Props
see.
to Buffalo for not giving up on him like a bunch of the other quarterbacks that we're going to
Well,
see here.
okay, can I just say this about Josh Allen?
Yeah.
It's been 1 year since we saw him get good. As the Bare Naked Ladies once said, it's been 1 year since he looked at me. To be honest, I'm gonna need Josh Allen to do it again.
Right. No, I'm with you. I'm with
that's
you.
fair.
Because I feel like
100. I'm with
people
you.
are I'm gonna keep 100, boss. I'm gonna keep it a $1.50 as they say, as the kids say these days. He played well this year, but to be fair, he's had multiple years of playing poorly before he played well. So if he plays well next year, maybe I'll get on the bandwagon.
Right. No, and I think that's a fair opinion because let's be honest, this is kind of the first year where we really saw him kind of hit that upper echelon. It's definitely a fair point. It's like, yeah, let's kind of see this one more time because the track record isn't there. That's so important for quarterbacks. Are you consistent?
Yeah.
What does your track record look like? Brandon, I know that you have always had your reservations on a bunch of these rookie quarterbacks. I'm sure you have those reservations even more with more so the bottom end of the class than the top end of the class. I'm sure you have some for the top end of the class. But what are your overall thoughts on Trevor Lawrence and what he can do in Jacksonville?
I'm going to try and give him the benefit of the doubt his first year because he's not exactly going to be working with a treasure trove of wide receivers. And like, I think he'll be. I'm very reluctant to think that he's going to be this amazing quarterback in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is because so often quarterbacks that just do really well in college perform extraordinarily poorly in the pros.
Especially first overall picks.
Yeah.
I mean, the only guy that I can think of as a first overall pick who, like, at least in the last 20 years or 15 years, I should say, was like really good was Andrew Luck, and his career was only 7 years or 8 years,
But he didn't have an offensive line.
Yeah. But like Kyler Murray could be, I mean, we've only seen him for 2 years, so I don't totally know yet if I'm still kind of 50-50 on him. Burrow, same thing. I mean, he showed promise, but
yeah,
that injury is a real deal with Burrow, by the way.
Yeah,
that's a real deal injury.
Well, yeah, he blew out his knee.
Yeah.
I also think the guy that I'm highest on right now in terms of belief is Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
I think he just showed he was dropped in the deep end and performed really well. But again, people can have really good first years and then terrible second years.
Sophomore slump.
Right.
Here's the thing with Herbert and why we're a bit more high on him too. That roster is just better.
Yeah.
That roster is just it can be competitive right away. How many of these rookie quarterbacks in the first round go to rosters where you say, yeah, they built something, or they have something already built, they just need a quarterback? It doesn't happen.
Well, it was kind of like Russell and how he got pretty lucky being dropped into a team with a really good defense.
Yeah, that was at the time in 2012. It was still kind of developing a bit, but you saw the pieces there.
But like it was developing too. Yeah, it was developing But in terms of the defense, it already had like a lot of the pieces there.
Mahomes is an even better example. I mean, he spent a year, on the bench with Alex Smith, and props to Alex Smith for kind of helping him develop his first year. But yeah, they were already every year divisional round,
Yeah.
a divisional round team, and then Mahomes comes in. Andy Reid knows what to do with him, and here's a ring, and here's back-to-back Super Bowl appearances. So I think it's an even better example.
Yeah.
Moving forward with the Jags, Brandon, the conversation we had about Urban Meyer, and I know that you expressed your concern, of course, about these some of the historical issues that Urban has had throughout his college career, and how that stuff doesn't really fly in the NFL as it shouldn't. And we had kind of that first roadblock this week with Chris Doyle as the head of sports performance for Jacksonville. He's had issues at Iowa with racism, or with comments of race, and also demeaning players. At Iowa, he was taken out of Iowa, had to get bought out because of it. And then Urban says, "Oh, I was working with him in Utah," which wasn't true, but he still hired him even with all the issues of racism and all of those issues at Iowa. Still hired him, still said he vetted him and he was comfortable. And then 2 days later, because he wasn't expecting the media pushback that is very common in the NFL, and of course it should be done in the NFL, and it isn't done as much in college, unfortunately. The media pushback forced Chris Doyle to resign a couple days ago. Just an entire mess that describes what Urban needs to learn in the NFL in terms of what does it mean to be an NFL head coach. But I think what you said the first time we talked about Urban Meyer in Jacksonville is even more true now after the whole Chris Doyle stuff.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. As I said, the man has such a long history of not taking like sexual harassment cases or racism or whatever seriously. And look, it's good to see the NFL saying, nah, there's no place for people like this in the NFL, which is ironic because if
there
it was a player,
players who are
right, if it was, and that's what I want to see for the future of the NFL. Start standing up to players who are doing stuff like this. Start really giving out hardcore punishments to players who who batter their wives or rape people or whatever. Like,
this is so much about the media too. I thought one of the most interesting parts about this was really the media, because that's what shocked Urban Meyer was that first press conference and them persisting on Chris Doyle, rightfully so. The media pushed back on it hard, and unfortunately for him, he didn't want to respond, because in college, guess what? The media is not that harsh, at least locally. But this is the NFL. This is what happens. But you're right. I think with players, even that type of media scrutiny does need to happen more often. Shane, your thoughts on the whole Chris Doyle situation and how it was handled?
It's very strange. Very strange, to say the least. But, like Brennan said, it's not surprising at the same time. It's, as good of a hire from a football perspective as I think Urban Meyer was, there's a lot of baggage there, just with all this stuff, sort of resurfacing now, because it did kind of get swept under the rug a little bit. I mean, you guys remember in the month ago or whatever when he was hired and we were doing the show, and Brennan said, well, what about all the stuff he did? And I was like, oh, geez, that's right. I didn't even, I'd totally forgotten about it. So, yeah, it does worry me a little bit, especially since Urban Meyer's whole thing is that he's like a culture builder or whatever. And, in the NFL, if you got all this media attention and whatnot from stuff like this happening, how's that really going to work in terms of a cultural rebuild? Because these guys, it's different if it's college and they're not getting paid. They're on scholarship, sure, but they're not, most of them, but they're not, they're not making millions. Okay. They're kids just trying to get to the pros. They'll do what you want. But now you're in the NFL, guys have egos. They are making more money than him. Some of them are, they got their brand deals or whatever. They're not going to be as obedient to him, if that makes sense.
Absolutely not. I mean,
Right,
you're
'cause he's-
coaching me.
I mean, these are NFL players.
Yeah, look at Chip Kelly. Perfect example. He was at Oregon. He had the whole thing. It was like at practice they'd run 140 plays in an hour or whatever.
Right.
And just fast, go, go. And then in the NFL, he kind of tried to do that, and they're like, yeah, whatever, dude.
You're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, man, we don't need to practice that much.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, so that, that's just like a minor thing compared to this, So if they wouldn't do that, what makes you think they're going to care about you now? Urban Meyer. So
why would I want to go to Jacksonville if this is how they're starting their organization? Right?
Exactly.
Like if I'm a free agent, why would I want to deal with this? Even if I'm Trevor Lawrence, I kind of hate the fact that I'm dealing with this.
And like,
bro, like what? You hire Urban Meyer, you put all the chips with him, sure, and then he makes this hire, and you don't even stop to question it. You're just like,
right.
okay, we're gonna let him do his thing. And guess what? The media is not that forgiving.
Yeah.
Like, come on, players are not that forgiving.
There's such a difference too between like it's really highlighting the difference between college and the NFL, and like it does bring into question like why is the media so forgiving to coaches in college? Like,
because they're gonna lose their media credentials from the coach. Literally runs the town.
Exactly. True.
So
it's like
ridiculous.
It's like a mafia.
It's I mean, I don't know, but like it's like
especially.
it's bad.
Well, I mean, think about SEC.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard of radio hosts in SEC towns saying something bad about coaches and getting stripped of their credentials.
Yeah, it's not the best. That's why I focus on national media, and even that's not perfect in college ball.
But it's I don't think 5, 6, 7 years ago this would have been a big issue.
No.
I don't think people would have cared about him bringing in this guy. But it's like, no, we're trying to change things around here. We're trying to change the way that
now
things
we have
are handled.
Culture.
Well, it's not. It's not even cancel culture.
But here's the thing, Shane. The league needs, as Brandon said, like the league needs pushback like this. It doesn't happen as often as it should.
But
it
happens.
a joke.
Yeah.
No, I know it was a joke, Shane. Yeah, it's just one of those things where like I went looking for the information on Urban Meyer.
Same.
But that's the thing. Like you have to go looking for it because nobody remembers it. It's not out there. You have to like look him up and like search it. And people are just so okay with leaving it hidden.
Yeah, because after our show, when we were talking about it, I was thinking, what did he do exactly? So I searched on Google, like Urban Meyer scandal, and the first 10 things that pop up are like, oh, he has a brain tumor. Oh, bless his soul. And I'm like,
it's just it's like this is not a scandal.
Like what?
Yeah,
I know he's not healthy, but what did he do?
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah, but it's also pretty ridiculous that I know that he has NFL guys in the building that know better, and he didn't do anything. Says a lot also about the staff that he already hired, which I thought before Chris Doyle, I actually thought that he did make some good hires, but Man, and also Shane's right. I think if you're trying to build a culture there in Jacksonville, and that's exactly what they're trying to do, this is not the start you wanted at all.
No.
And it's rough. Let's go into some NBA stuff. An interesting week throughout the league or throughout the association. All-Star starters were announced this week. We are going to have the All-Star game on March 7th. Shane, your thoughts first. Should we have an All-Star game considering everything that's going on with COVID and everything? Should we even have an All-Star game?
I mean, I don't think we should have one anyways, regardless of COVID, because it's just stupid. But so I think that kind of answers that question. But but I mean, of course we're still gonna do it because views, money, whatever. And of course it's the same group of guys as it always is. So.
Bradley Beal. We'll get to that in a second. Brannan, we've had conversations about this because I was always on the camp that I don't understand the point of having the All-Star game this year with COVID and everything, but I'm kind of starting to lean towards kind of in the middle now in terms of thinking about kind of both arguments. What are your thoughts on sort of the merits of having an All-Star game in this environment?
Well, I mean, the All-Star game, it's a good thing to like reward the players in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like, hey, y'all did good. A little, a pat on the head and a stomach rub, and you're like, oh, good boy. But I mean, it's also people who are saying, oh, it's such a risk of COVID. Well, it's not really. I mean, it's just
like any other game they do.
It's the closest to a bubble this year. It's just a bunch of players coming together in Atlanta, no fans in the stands.
I wonder if they will have some, but either way. Nothing's been confirmed on that yet.
I like that they're doing the dunk contest at halftime.
I like that they're doing everything on the same day.
Yeah.
I think that's fun. It just makes I loved Saturday night, but if I like this, I'm going to advocate for them to keep it on Sundays because I just don't see the point of having 2 days. Let's just put it all on one day and just have a really, really fun, crazy day. Now, I don't know if the players on both of the Western Conference and Eastern Conference, they usually love to watch their guys do this stuff, but I don't know. I kind of like that it's all in one day.
Now, I do have to say this. This voting is whack.
Fans get a lot of leeway on this.
Fan voting is whack. Friggin' Luka Doncic. What?
Oh well, I think over Damian Lillard by a smudge is a little bit much.
This dude was not an All-Star this year.
I think he was an All-Star. I just don't think he was a starter because he started the year with some shape issues, right? But I think he should be an All-Star, but not a starter.
Also, Kyrie, really as a starter?
Fair on the East Coast, yeah. Fair on the East side as well, yeah. What other guards on the East probably should have started here? I'm trying to think. I don't know. I think it's probably in my head right now, unfortunately, but I'm sure there's a lot more.
I mean, Van Vliet was pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know All-Star starter material. Either way, so I think the biggest thing, other than the fact that Damian Lillard didn't get in, was the fact that Bradley Beal did get in. Thank God that he got in as a starter. I think he should have. He's had a crazy year so far.
Bradley Beal's kind of carrying the.
Yeah, he is.
The Wizards, a shitty ass Wizards.
Even with Westbrook there, he's kind of that.
You know what's sad for the Wizards?
What?
They're probably gonna end the season with the worst record and still might not get the number 1 pick.
Well, yeah, because I honestly feel like Bradley Beal should get moved at this point. He's so frustrated. Like you can see every week, he's like, oh, he needs to get moved. bad.
saddest thing about the Wizards is that they're named the Wizards. That's the worst name in the entire NBA,
Is it?
in my opinion.
Do you remember when we had the Bobcats? That was
Or the
They don't-
Pelicans.
the Pelicans are okay. I get
It's
why
just so like, who we're playing? Oh, the Pelicans. Oh,
Pelicans.
vicious.
We'll see how the reserves go. I think once I see the reserves, we'll get a better sense of everything. Yeah, it should be interesting.
I mean, the Lakers is a pretty dumb name for a team as well. Like, what
Do
we're
you
playing
know-
about? We're playing Lakes.
Do you
Okay.
know? Do you know the history with the Lakers name? By the way,
No.
the
Yeah,
history
'cause
is
they're
pretty
from
good.
Montana.
No, they're from Minnesota.
Or yeah, Minnesota.
Oh
sorry.
yeah, Minnesota
They're from
great. Yeah,
Minnesota,
State of
like,
10,000
yeah,
lakes.
They got moved to.
yeah. That's so funny.
Because that actually makes sense. Like the Minnesota
Yeah.
Lakers, they're the state of 10,000 lakes or whatever they say. So it's like, yeah, okay. But Los Angeles, the city with
No Lakes.
3 lakes, I think.
Let's talk about some of these teams. First, we kind of always start the conversation with this team, Brooklyn. Incredible offense. Holy crap! Even without KD,
Terrible defense.
that defense. Ugh. That defense is rough.
Yeah. They kind of remind me of the Lakers last year, where
A little bit.
they have really good offense, but they just on defense they just like make a sandwich or something.
It's
and
funny. It's funny.
the game.
They make a sandwich.
No, but it's funny. It's funny because they remind me a lot of on offense. They remind me a lot of Golden State with KD a little bit, like because how fast they play. Also, Harden is actually passing the ball, which is nice to see. He's actually playing like a more natural point guard fit with this team, which they need.
But they're losing to like teams they shouldn't be losing to.
That's true, and that's because their defense is bad, and also they don't have a good bench at all.
So they're like the Clippers last year.
A little bit. They're like a bunch of those kind of. I think the Clippers is maybe a more apt example, like playoff Clippers, a little bit.
I think a team that's impressing me is the Jazz.
Yeah, we'll get to the Jazz
Yeah.
and of course the Suns as well. Shane, do you want to sort of finish up on the Nets? Because I think those are like the basics with Brooklyn.
Well, I mean, it's funny too because in the beginning of the season, didn't we think that they had the best bench?
Yeah.
Yeah, they traded it. They're traded
And they
their
traded
whole
their
bench.
bench
They traded their bench.
for Harden.
They traded their bench for Harden, and now they don't have a
Yeah.
bench.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think they'll still be competitive in the East though, just because of
They're the best team in the East.
how good their offense is.
Yeah,
So
just because of that offense.
yeah. I mean, even if they don't,
I would like to remind you all that Toronto beat the Nets. So.
I mean, yeah. Again, defense is
just
bad, but doesn't mean that they're not
just saying,
their defense. Let me look at the East really quick.
yeah, Toronto, they're getting better.
Yeah.
They're getting
Started off a
better.
little rough. I think they're kind
They're
of
a weird
starting to
team
find their
this year.
footing. Not footing.
Speaking of teams that like lose to teams they should beat.
Actually, the Sixers are better because the Sixers actually have a defense. My bad. No, I would say Eastern Conference, the Sixers are way better.
Yeah, that's
Just
fair.
defensively, they've been nasty this year. They've
It's
been
funny.
nasty this year.
Doc Rivers, I guess, was a good hire for him.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
We've talked about the Sixers in the past, all that stuff that we talked about earlier in the year. Yeah, their defense is nice, and Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, that roster is working.
They're actually playing together well.
Yes, and that's been
Which is
a major difference.
Which is as we talked about earlier before the season when Doc Rivers said, "We're gonna make them work together."
They have. Do you want to, Brandon? Do you want to actually talk about the Jazz first? Let's talk about the Jazz. What is it?
Yeah, I think they're like last time I checked, they had won 18 of their last 19 games.
Yeah, they have been incredible this year.
Well, they just,
Yeah.
thing is, like, they just have, because most teams, they have like their big two or maybe three, and they do as well, with Jokic and Donovan Mitchell.
Gobert and Mitchell, but yes.
Sorry. Gobert and Mitchell, yeah. But they have a lot of other good pieces too.
Jordan Clarkson's kind of pumped up. I have to look
Like-
at Mike Conley's numbers again, but I think he's had a good year as well. Royce O'Neal's been a nice piece.
Bogdanovich.
It's really a unit. That's the difference. That's the
Right.
difference. It's like this
They're a
team.
complete team, I feel
This
like.
this team all year has felt like a complete unit compared to many other teams where it is kind of about the stars. This team has felt more like a unit, and amazingly, it's worked to perfection so far this year.
Yeah.
Brandon, what are your thoughts in watching some of these Utah games as well?
I mean, yeah, you basically put it like they're a unit, but they're also a team that they brought everybody back from last year.
Yeah.
Like, this is a team that I think they lost to Denver in the first round. I think,
Yes. Yep.
in a pretty competitive series.
With Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell just hitting 50
Yeah.
every night.
It was kind of insane.
Yeah.
But like, I think, and it's kind of funny, I think this team is a competitor to win the chip.
I think so too.
And
right
it's
now.
kind of funny considering Rudy Gobert was the one who kicked off the 6-7 month freeze on basketball.
I think him and Mitchell and that conversation brought the team closer too. Like, I really do. Like, I think that was a huge step for them.
Yeah.
Just to
Which is
say,
weird,
hey,
'cause
we're
if anything,
committed to this team.
It seems
He's like, I'm
it wasn't
sorry.
bad.
I'm a dumbass. It's just like, yeah. I mean, honestly, it is. You see situations like that, but it's also the fact that, like, this isn't a team with a terribly large amount of big names,
Mhm.
but there's a couple. You know, you got Bogdanovich, you got
I've been ridiculously impressed with Clarkson this year.
You got
Holy
Clarkson,
crap.
You got Gobert. You got who's been balling out. You got Donovan Mitchell, Favors, Ingles.
Favors and them. I think Royce O'Neal's been a nice piece. Ingles has stepped in when he needs to, and he's been like that forever. Mike Conley, I need to look more deeply in his numbers, but I think he's had a good year as well. I think we've kind of summarized it. It's a unit and it works, and it hasn't in the past, and it finally is coming together.
Well, it's kind of like it reminds me a lot of the Raptors when we won the chip. Like, it was a team with like players that played together well, cohesively, and played as a team, like as a group, not individually.
Another team that I know you want to discuss as well is the Suns, which you brought up earlier. What has impressed you about them? Because I think Chris Paul getting there has really helped change that culture even more.
Well, I think the Suns have kind of proven that they're not just a one and done, kind of a joke, you know. Like, I'm kind of waiting for them to, after the All-Star game, I'm waiting for them to, like, you know, fall down the stairs, so to say. But maybe it won't happen this year because they've had really good starts in the past. But
yeah, because normally they just do good for like a few weeks, maybe a month, and then
it's the first month of the year normally.
Yeah, but they're still doing good. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I just love Chris Paul. I think that addition has just been so perfect for them because it says, hey, we're gonna be competitive, and with Devin Booker and all those guys there, I think that's really been a massive difference. And Monty Williams, credit to what he's done with that organization. They've really turned it around.
When he's, Chris Paul, he's a veteran presence, and he's just a natural leader,
Yeah.
That's what he really brings to them, which I think they kind of needed. So, yeah.
Before we get to Toronto, I did want to rant about the Bucks. I watched that game against Toronto yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was done by halftime. Like,
it's just the Giannis show.
It's lit, but it's like I need Chris Middleton. I need to see Chris Middleton actually like put his presence on the game, because when he does and Giannis does, that team can win a title. But
it's not a team. It's not a team. It's the Giannis show.
That's the thing. I need to see more Middleton, and I think Drew Holiday was out, so I need to see more of Drew Holiday with them. But even with Drew Holiday, it's watching them play this year is not fun because they still feel like the exact same team they were 3 years ago. They're just not that interesting, and maybe it's because I need to actually watch them in the playoffs. Maybe it's because they're kind of coasting at this point, but I don't even know if it's coasting.
Well, they shouldn't even coast because they have a losing record.
Yeah.
Like, you can't coast with a losing record unless you don't want to make the playoffs. Like,
that's the thing. They're not even that good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably 40% of their success. Just
maybe
alone.
more at this point. And when you watch them without Drew, I'm sure this is even the case with Drew, it feels like that every night. And you're just like, come on. This is not going to win you a title.
It shouldn't be. I mean, he should be, your star should be like 20% of your success, maybe.
Yeah, well, I just want to see more Chris. Like, I want to see Chris Middleton have a presence on the game and not feel like a background guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because he's just not. It doesn't seem like he's there when I'm watching them. It's really weird. He's still producing, but like, dang, like that's been the biggest problem with the Bucks for a long time. It's not Giannis. It's where's Chris Middleton, and he hasn't shown up in the playoffs last year. When he does show up, they can win, but they need him to do so. With the Raptors, this gets us into Andre Drummond. He is going to get traded pretty much at any moment now. The Raptors seem like an ideal destination. They were the first destination that was brought up. Brandon, your thoughts on what Andre Drummond can bring to Toronto, or I guess Tampa in this case?
Yeah, well, I mean, he can shoot the ball. He's shown he can shoot the ball, and he's a presence down low. I mean, I think it would be a good addition. He's kind of old, but
you only have him on a 1-year deal, $27 million.
And I don't know if I really want them to give up someone like Lowry for a 1-year deal for someone on a 1-year deal.
Isn't Lowry on a $33 million 1-year deal as well?
I don't think so. I think he's on. I don't know, but
I'll look. But yeah, Lowry's been in trade talks as well. We've talked about it in the past. I would be surprised if it's for Drummond. It could be, but you wouldn't be happy about the Lowry thing as we've talked about. But see, here's sort of the difference with Drummond. Drummond is more of a natural rebounder than a shot blocker. And we've talked about their need for size, but also their need for kind of the shot blockers, the rim protectors. Drummond really isn't that. Do you think that's a massive concern for them if they bring in Drummond?
I mean, I think they could always get someone else to be a shot blocker. But like, I think Drummond would be good because in terms of like putting someone down low to patrol for rebounds, because we don't really have anybody to patrol for rebounds. Okay, yeah. So we
1 year, $30 million. So now trade him if you want to trade him.
Yeah, he'll probably get cut next year or picked up by someone else.
Yeah. So that's kind of part of it too. Why Lowry is in trade talks or trade rumors. Blake Griffin as well is another guy who looks like his ship is sunk in Detroit, which as expected, that contract is stupid. And we'll see if they're going to have to figure out a buyout because no one's going to trade for him. That's a rough situation in Detroit, but guys like Sadiq Bey have been really impressive. So I kind of like their roster in Detroit because they're young. Their young pieces are pretty fun. And they just, I think pretty simply, they just need to move off the older guys on that team. The main conversation with both of these guys, and more particularly Drummond, is the comments that Draymond Green made, I believe yesterday or 2 days ago, about sort of the double standard of trading for the players in the NBA or double standard for players in terms of trades. Basically, watching Draymond Green on the sideline and go back in street clothes because they're going to get traded is ridiculous because the teams don't get flack for it. But a player like James Harden, because he wants a trade, I don't think James Harden's the best example for this, but a player like James Harden wanting to get traded and then everyone kind of goes after them. When Drummond gets traded, and no one's mad at Drummond, that they shouldn't be, but no one's kind of upset at the Cavs organization for it. So he's kind of mentioning a bit of a double standard. I don't know if this is the most perfect example of it, but it is an interesting comment. Brandon, what are your thoughts on Draymond Green's comments?
Did Brennan disappear?
I think his mic got tripped up. Shane, you go ahead first. What are your thoughts on the comments on the double standard?
Oh geez, my chair just broke. It didn't break, but it felt like it did. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't actually see this, but this is interesting because it's basically he's saying that, if I'm getting this right, he's saying that Harden.
Harden basically is saying that Harden, when he's requesting a trade, people get pissed off at it, right? Because the player asking for a deal. But then he's saying Drummond's in street clothes. Why isn't the team getting the same flack?
Right. I mean,
I don't think it's the most perfect example of it. It really isn't. Because Harden was a whole mess in itself. But it is an interesting idea that the players get so much flack for wanting to get traded when at the end of the day, it's a business. And if they want to go to a certain place, get them to a certain place.
Well, and it's, the NBA is such a players league that it's like, it's totally normal and understandable for somebody to want to go a certain place. You know what I mean? So that's kind of, in that sense, like, I understand why somebody, especially with the talent and star power of Harden, would want to leave or, go to a different team. It's like, I kind of get it. But yeah, that is kind of a strange example now that I
it is a very weird example. But I think it is, I think it is interesting. Now, Harden was out, for a bunch of different reasons in Houston. But it is interesting how teams want to buy people out or want to trade them. And obviously, they decide to sit them because if they get injured, guess what? Oh, we can't trade them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But there is something to be said here for a guy like Andre Drummond not getting like 15 minutes a game. Even if he doesn't start, him playing, like the idea of him basically not, like him essentially just not playing is part of the issue here, where it's like, oh, and then we don't care as teams, right? Or like as media or as fans, we don't care that Drummond is sitting because the team wants to trade him. But with a guy like Harden, he wants to get traded. He's sitting by his own admission, and we're like, oh my God, why is he sitting? But to be fair, Harden actually played a good amount this year. So again, not the best example of it because he did actually play very well for Houston this year and for about a month. But I see where he's going, even if the example isn't perfect.
Yeah. I gotta head out actually.
Yeah.
But
sounds good.
Yeah. Brandon, I don't know where you are, but goodbye.
Yeah. Brandon, how's your mic doing?
Hello.
Here? There we go. There's your microphone.
No, right. I'm here.
Yeah. I was very confused. Shane, have a great rest of your day, man. Thanks for hopping in. We'll finish up here. We only got a couple topics left.
Thank you. Okay. See you later.
Brandon, what are your thoughts on sort of the double standard topic here? Because it is interesting. Obviously, it's not the perfect example, but what are your thoughts on Draymond?
I think Draymond Green just he likes to make a stink, like he likes to.
Do you agree with the comments? Because I see where his head's at.
I mean, I do to an extent, like I get it. It must be frustrating to sit there and like just, Like
Yeah.
you're on this team, you want to play basketball. That's what you're there to do. And to have your team basically say, "Oh, you're possibly getting traded."
So we're gonna
So you're
sit
just gonna
because of
sit here.
injury. But then if a player says I want to get traded and they sit, people get pissed off that he's sitting.
Right.
It's just it doesn't make sense.
But like I also think on the other hand, there are situations where players they sit just to sit, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a complicated issue.
It's a complicated thing, but I think it's a fair point. I think what makes it tough is because the example isn't perfect. Like Harden didn't play. And this has happened with Drummond before, I think, even in Detroit. So not the most perfect example, but I see where he's going. Let's go on to something that I think you and I both, to finish out today, have sort of a passion for, which is the weirdness of these MLB contracts. Trevor Bauer, 3 years, $102 million. His first year, he's making 45, then 40. He's doing a huge deal. And then Fernando Tatis making a 14-year, $340 million deal. I think the main thing we need to point out with this is the fact that Bauer is getting paid more than the payroll of what, 3 MLB teams?
Yeah.
Which is, again, nothing
Which
to do with
is
Bauer.
insane.
This is not about Bauer. This is about where baseball is.
This is a conversation about baseball.
Yeah. So
Like,
his contract is
good for
$40
you,
million.
Bauer. Like
The Indians, the Pirates, and the Orioles have a lower payroll than Trevor Bauer's contract. Annual money.
I mean, like good for you, Bauer, and your agent for getting you the contract.
But again,
but like,
what is this?
Yeah.
Like what? I was talking to our guy Tanner, who's talking about like how we kind of need like it's kind of like a salary cap, but more so a salary floor because we have because we have luxury tax. I think that's a fair point. There just needs to be some kind of cap here because these teams like the Dodgers just build super teams, and as we kind of talk about every time we talk about this, like even if these teams do have a super team, if you will. It's not like they're going to win necessarily.
Right.
Like the Yankees have had that for the last 5 years and they keep losing. In the postseason.
There's just no equity in baseball.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? Cool. He's making $40 million this year. Congratulations. Like, if you really need that much money, cool.
Why is it that why is it even that he's getting paid this much money? It's too much anyway.
It's a good question. It's like once you get past like 10 million, it's like what the fudge are you gonna do with 40 million? And that's just in 1 year. I mean, you have a lot of taxes, but
right. But the problem with it again is not necessarily the contract. It's this idea that the contract is more than a team's payroll, which shows the disparity of baseball and how owners who make a lot of money and care about actually spend, and owners that don't. And then that's why
like look at the Mariners. Like we were not competing until we got an owner who's like, okay, yeah, sure. You want money? Here's money.
And then next offseason, they're planning to spend a lot of it. Not as much this offseason, but next offseason, they're going to try to spend. So we'll see if they do.
But at the same time, it's like it's still not competitive with like the Yankees or the Dodgers.
Right.
And
because they're just going to spend. They don't care about the luxury tax.
But I think the Mariners, in a way, have found a way around it because they've gone with the build a farm team approach. They've given up players in their prime to get young guys in the hope that they'll become amazing, and that's starting to happen.
And then it's not only that. It's like, okay, we're doing that, but we have a lot of money in place.
Right.
Where next offseason we can fill the pieces with the money that we do have. Fill those issues with the money that we do have.
But, like, it's the same issue that, like, the Mariners had back in the day that teams like the Indians and the Pirates and the Orioles have, where I mean, if you only have if your payroll cap is like 36, 37, 39 million, you're not even competitive.
I mean, in some years you are, like the Indians were that year they made the World Series, but it's not. It's kind of like an anomaly at the end of the day because of the payroll.
Yeah.
It's really ridiculous. And also, I think another main thing going to the Tatis contract before we finish up, for like the whole 14-year thing here, over 10 years. Like I know we saw it with Mahomes and stuff, but like in baseball, it's different because it happens so often.
Also, nobody's going to play a 14-year contract.
I don't. How many times does that happen in the MLB? Like we'll see if Mike Trout plays through his, but it's like, what's the point of paying these guys like for their lives, basically with the 14 million, just locking them up? Who knows if they if they regress, can you trade them? Probably not.
Nobody's going to take a 14-year contract, because that's the thing. Like
a year 10, like imagine year 10 of a deal. I don't know if it would be the case with Tatis, but whoever, imagine like year 10 of the deal, the guy's not good anymore. You're paying him this bank and you can't trade him.
Yeah, I guess Tatis might make it because he's young and he's pretty good. But I mean, I would argue, look at Trout. Trout has regressed, in my opinion,
since getting the contract.
He started off really good and
I think a more apt example of it is Bryce Harper. I mean, where is he with the Phillies? I remember all the hype with him, and it's just sort of died down, and he's got this huge contract. The Phillies are trying to be competitive, but do we really think they will be? I mean, they haven't done too much this offseason, I don't think. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just a really weird thing with baseball. There's so many issues of baseball, but this is one of the bigger ones. I think that is pretty much it. Any other sort of topics, any like pop culture stuff before we head out?
No, I think that kind of sums it up.
I think that sums it up for today. And that was a pretty good docket of stuff. Good NBA, good stuff with the NFL offseason. It's really weird. The NFL is really one of those 365 a day sports. It's one of those where, there's always stuff happening every day. And on top of that, we got March Madness coming up. Of course, the All-Star game in March. So we're excited to cover that coming up. And it should be fun. That bubble in Indiana is going to be super interesting to see how that goes through. And so that's pretty much it for today. Thank you, Brandon, for coming in. And then Shane as well. And we will see you all next week, next Friday. All right. Have a great